Hello and welcome to the first level of gameplay programming. Today we will talk about gameplay in general, an introduction to the field. It's going to be a bit confusing, and it will be left up to you to start thinking and reading around about what you will hear in a minute. So the course is called Gameplay Programming. Let's get acquainted with the term. You are studying for the Masters in Game Development, right? So after you graduate, you will be interested to get a job. And it seems that the query gameplay programmer job yields interesting results. About 20k offers in USA, not bad. And checking a few links further, it's not a bad position at all. You can earn something with that. So all good, game development companies have use for gameplay programmers. Now we know it's a profitable goal to become a gameplay programmer. We need to find out who is that or how to become one. So another query will state that gameplay programmers write the code for the interactions that make a game fun to play. While lead designers decide on the combat, gameplay programmers make it happen. They work with level designers to see what needs to be done to make the gameplay work. Okay, what does that supposed to mean? Not sure about you, but my academic heart is crying out loud. Combat in the game is initiated or played by the player, so no, gameplay programmers are not making it happen, they code the system. Without a player, there is no combat. And what's this? They work to make the gameplay work? Yes, I kinda expect gameplay programmer to have something to do with the gameplay, but this phrase smells of circular definition, a deadly sin, period. But there is some knowledge to acquire. This line implies there is some kind of team involved in the game development, and that gameplay programmer cannot do whatever it wants to do with the game. So let's Google further. Wow, the game development team turned out to be bigger than a football one. And is neatly organized. The production is ordering the design. The design quests pretty much everyone else, except production and QA. And in the end, QA reports to production how the game is not good yet, so they can backlash the team. And here is our hero, the gameplay programmer. Interestingly, she is not alone within the programming department. Let's zoom in. As this diagram was charted together with people from the industry, we can get a sense of how programming department is divided. It also gives you an overview which areas are so deep they require their own specialization, like network programmer or physics programmer. Finally, the chart is telling us that programming department is getting input from the design, art and animation, while outputting things for audio and QA. Do not show this to Adam Sporka from the audio course. He might get furious about the audio being behind the programming in the pipeline. And he would give you excellent reasons why, but that's for another course. Another Google hit will get you to YouTube video from Ubisoft, quite polished, quite general, but a nice introduction nevertheless. They say that the gameplay programming is kind of a physical art. It is about trying to manipulate that interface between the player and the game. Now please go and watch that video. I cannot embed it here as YouTube would scold me for that. So please really pause me and check what people from Ubisoft says about gameplay programming. They have lovely offices, don't they? So what intrigued me when I read this is the part, that interface between the player and the game. It's getting more and more philosophical. But this implies there is something subtle going on between those two parties, the player and the game. And it is so important that it requires own profession, a gameplay programmer. The picture on the left captures that somehow. We can say that getting those strings done well really matters. If we recall what we seen earlier and put it together from what we heard from Ubisoft, it starts making sense. Somehow. To rephrase, gameplay programmer is here to ensure the game can be played well. Let's get one ontological level deeper. What is gameplay anyway? I mean, I know what is programming. instructing machine to compute something. But gameplay? Really, this is an important question. One cannot program what one cannot describe. We all probably have an experience what happened when we tried to implement an algorithm we did not fully understand. A disaster. So what is gameplay? According to Wikipedia, small academic sin, gameplay is the specific way in which players interact with a game, and in particular with video games. Gameplay is the pattern defined through the game rules, connection between a player and the game, challenges and overcoming them, plot and player's connection with it. Video gameplay is distinct from graphics and audio elements. Again, does this make any sense? At least it is more concrete than before, so let's break this down. This one is good. Specific way in which players interact with a game. It forces you to think about the game as a system and a player as a user. And the system is giving some controls to the user how to interact with it, do actions, make changes to the system. And that system is driven by some rules, which are challenging a player to achieve something through the means of those actions. Various people are then explaining, I do not dare to say defining, the term differently. Sid Meier describes the gameplay or a game as a series of interesting choices. Well, knowing his games, one is not really surprised with this. Not sure if this explains Match 3 games or slot machines though. Björk and Holopainen says the gameplay consists of structures of player interaction. Adams and Rawlings speaks of challenges in simulated environment. Usually people also referring to gaming environment as safe with respect to the real world. That can be unsafe to play in the same way. Well, one does not shoot cacodemons in real world. Finally, Nake and others see gameplay as interactive gaming process of the player with the game. At last, we have an attribution of the gaming to the player. We can say that it is the player that completes the game. If the game does not need a player, it would simply be a movie of a sort, maybe. We can get better quote from Nake on the game, gameplay and players. They said that the experience of gameplay is one of interacting with a game design in the performance of cognitive tasks, with a variety of emotions arising from or associated with different elements of motivation, task performance, and completion. We are getting to the ground of cognitive and social psychology here, and we need not need to leave the math phase. Rephrasing the quote, the gameplay makes up an experience for the player, an activity the player is part of, an activity that elicits emotions within the player. This actually gives us a ground upon which you might start differentiating a good gameplay from a bad gameplay. In literature, quality of gameplay is usually linked with playability. Of course, there are many other things to it, like the art or the story or the characters, but those things can be found in other media as well. It is the play, the gameplay, the required activity from the player that makes games unique. So it makes sense to zoom onto this yet another term, playability. We can say that playability is the ease by which the game can be played, or the quantity or duration that a game can be played. As such, we can evaluate that. Playability evaluation methods target games to improve design, while, and this is important, player experience evaluation methods target players to improve gaming. I'm not sure if I agree with this one. It tries to separate playability from the player, but what it tries to say or suggest is that playability is more universal than other more subjective player experiences. In other words, playability as an experience is similar between players of similar background, so it can be judged or dissected somewhat objectively. And that is what gameplay programming is about. The role of gameplay programmer is to assure good playability. No, we are not ending. The rabbit hole is pretty deep in here. Playability is being researched. People are already came up with properties that are part of it. Those properties are non-exhaustive, but never mind, because it gives you lens how to judge the gameplay from different angles. Uncover and articulate its strong or weak points. Being able to say just more than, yeah, it was a good game, or, the game did not get me. You see, being a game developer is totally something else than being a game player. A developer must be able to pinpoint the problems of games in order to be able to fix them. It's the same as with algorithms. If you do not understand an algorithm you are coding, you will fail implementing it. If you do not understand what makes a good game, you will never make one. So, the properties of playability. Satisfaction, highly subjective, but true, it's part of playability. Learning, the player should be able to understand the system and play with that. Some are saying dominating, but games does not need to be about conquering, so I'm passing on this one. Efficiency, the game must not ask much from player in order to elicit fun, at least from an average player. You will discuss fun, motivation and flow in great depths in the game design course. For now, let's just work with assumption a game should be able to catch players' attention fast. Immersion, great aspect. A good game feels natural, controls of the game feels natural. The interface is not blocking the player from experiencing the game world. Next. Motivation. Game is playable if it keeps a player motivated to carry on. The urge to complete one more run, one more level. Emotions. A good game is memorable and strong emotions correlates with memorable experiences. Last but not least, socialization. A good game is one you like to talk about with others or play with others. If you see someone talking about a game, it is simply a sign of good playability. So, knowing some bits about how gameplay is connected with playability and the player, it is no surprise that the definition of a game player programmer is vague. But hopefully now it will be more understandable. Though all programmers add to the content and experience that a game provides, a gameplay programmer focuses more on game strategy, implementation of the game's mechanics and logic, and the feel of the game. And we now know a bit what the word feel is about here. So let's try to become a gameplay programmer. Google. We got something. Well, it doesn't look good. Let's click on it out anyway. And it can't seem to find anything. Bad. And another query. This is our page. The proof you are in the right place, right? Just search bias towards content I work with the most. Okay, let's turn to science to see what is the practice of teaching gameplay programming. Nada. About 20k jobs for gameplay programmers in USA, yet the science is silent when it comes to teaching gameplay programming. Weird. Okay, Google Scholar has something, but Jewel Gem Game as the first hit, and twice on the very same first page? Is this a joke or what? No, it's just people are labeling gameplay programming simply as game programming, which is nuts. If you type game programming book, game design and game engines and other areas are popping out as well. It's actually not that easy to get to gameplay programming tricks. And now the disappointment of this lecture. We will be really going through technical details of gameplay implementation, more than all those cool gameplay and playability and player experience relations. These are actually left for the course on game design and game user research to play with. Oh my, why have you been saying us all those stuff if you wanted to do... Oh my, why have you been saying us all those stuff if all you wanted to do is to get to game programming? Well, you know, we all can name a game with a memorable gameplay. And now, having the introduction, you can start pondering why they are memorable, which is a key to start replicating that memorable feeling in your projects. I hope I hit at least one of your favorite games with those screenshots. So going from the top left corner clockwise, we have Portal and its memorable mix of experimental mechanics, the darkest dungeon that is forcing you out of your comfort zone by denying you to have the only one pimped heroes, or Stanley Parable, where the narrator is messing up with you all the time. The Binding of Isaac and its unique procedural content generation, kinda classic nowadays. Or Slay the Spire, single-player card game where the deck-building mechanic is giving it superb replayability. All great games I deemed to have memorable gameplay. I remember times Stanley Parable came out. So many people talked about it, even played it together on a single screen with single controller. You might object that those games are memorable because of their game design. But who does bring a game design and its game mechanics into life? Everyone, shout with me, a gameplay programmer. Remember the diagram from the beginning? Game designer is typically not the one who codes the game. Naturally, gameplay programmer takes a great part in carving the gameplay experience for the player. So gameplay programmers works in tandem with game designers. Game designers might have dreams of great games, but the dreams may be so complicated to realize within the code that they may prove not to be doable. After all, game budgets are not infinite. Honestly, having a game designer to have dreams about great games is desirable. But you as a gameplay programmer must know what is possible to implement and guesstimate how much time it will take to implement them in order to provide Occam's razor to game designers' ideas, or to be able to transform them into something doable. In a nutshell, during pre-production, when the game is being prototyped, you always need to weigh options and pit different ideas against each other. You will pit cost of implementation against benefits for the gameplay, the player experience, striving to hit the min-max scenario here, or to be as close as possible to this area. And the course will try to give you experiences for that. In other words, you will be prototyping various game mechanics in order to gain proficiency with them. And believe me, it takes so much work to polish playability of a single game. Ready to take the red pill? Good. Let me comment on the Slay the Spire. So okay, here is the Slay the Spire. As you can see, we can start commenting on gameplay already. We have been talking that it's about interface between the game and the player. So what we can see here, like those clouds or some effect or whatever, this can be done by animator and animation. It can be done by gameplay programmer, like tweening things around, but most likely it will not. But actually I have a mouse and I can control things. And here we are getting to interactivity, because this cannot really be created by an animator. It needs to react to what the player is doing. And this is neat already. If you check on that, how it behaves, how it is smooth, someone needs to figure out proper values for various tweening algorithms, and having like alpha turned up and down, moving things. So already this will require some kind of work. Not much, but it's there. And you have to always consider that you cannot guess correct values at first. You need to always run a game and see how it behaves to get values which affect this motion in the game. So let's click on continue, as I already am having something to play with. Okay, so finally or already another big chunk of implementation. I had my previous run persisted, so there is some kind of serialization that persisted the state of the game, so it's saved somewhere, and someone had to define what all needs to be serialized, how to save it, how to load it, and how to replicate or recreate the game state. So that's behind the scenes. We have a bunch of things here, and as you can see, the interface is reacting to me in a pretty nice way. We have a lot of text in here, which can be localized probably. So what you see, like the like all those boxes, they are probably, or their dimensions are probably automatically generated out of the text, so you might need to play with that as well. It might not be as easy to do in various game frameworks because working with text is pretty complicated always. And you also have like images in those texts as well, and that's another feature that is not that easy to pull out because you usually don't have rich text or something that can embed images into the text right away. So it's nice. Maybe they have pre-rendered that, but probably not, because there are some numbers which are probably driven by some configuration you are playing with when doing the game. So what else I have in here? This is my character. I can't do much with that because it's a card game, but I have a reward. Yeah, and again, nice thing. As you can see, choose a relic, for instance, how it pops out. This all needs to be staged because there are multiple times in the game when this appears. So this text needs to be dynamic. So somebody did a good job of polishing just this simple opening. Also, notice how the background has faded out, but some elements were sustained. So a game designer or an artist has been working with a gameplay programmer on this already, like what things should become visible, what should get darkened and how much, and so on and so forth. Also, I have some items here which were probably randomly generated, maybe not, maybe there are some probabilities associated, maybe these are different to what class I'm playing, and that all needs to be somehow like persisted, or you need to create a model for that so a game designer can fill in those values and they are reflected by the game. Also notice how nicely those things are again reacting to my input, how fluid the things are. It's just nice to interact with the interface. Also, the interface is providing me with a safe space of getting back. So let's choose something. I think I chosen this or wanted this, and I can proceed. And again, a scene switch, that's not also that trivial, because when you're doing a scene switch, there are some loading associated, and sometimes loading of a large scene can take a lot of time, so you might want to preload the scene in the background before you actually switch into scene, but there are chances that a player will actually switch to a different scene sooner than you will preload it, so you still need to have some trick in the pocket to show before you load the next scene. And here is a procedurally generated graph, which is definitely something a gameplay programmer would be coding, like both the PCG algorithm and then the visualization. Actually, as you can see, that is pretty neat. It's not aligned automatically; it has been perturbed with some delta position, and so I can now choose something. Also some kind of legend. Again, those controls are still reacting to me. Okay, so let's choose some path. So I will encounter this. And have you seen the transition between that scene and to this one? That's the polish you usually like to have within the game, and very complex to achieve. Maybe not complex, but time consuming. It involves a lot of graphical effects, and someone needs to design them and again tweak all those parameters that the effect has. So now I'm playing this, and the main thing is to cast spells, maybe use cards, and to do something. And as this is the main interface between the system, the combat here, it needs to be done well. So basically the text can be pretty complex sometimes, so I need to really see it. So I need to play with that, and the game is not coming with any tutorial, so it actually provides a way or is designed a way so player automatically gets how to play with that. The game actually requires you to do something, and as those are cards, the designers rely that people will eventually click on things, because that's what you do with cards, right? So when I click something, immediately the card is getting to my hand, so I can move with that, okay, and I experience with it, and suddenly something appears like this arrow, and it seems I can like point it somewhere, and if I point it correctly, it gives me the feedback that that's the thing I can do. No, I can't cast it to this character, but I can cast it here, and again this will be dynamically created, so there is not something you can like really script, so gameplay programming work in place. So let's get the fragment and boot sequence as it's attacking me, and notice all those nice stuff happening around. So let's attack, and multiple things has happened. Those cards are affecting the state of the game. Sometimes those effects are affected by the items I have, and the UI is kind of like saying me that things are interacting together. Like for instance, Nunchaku has been activated, and it gave me another point of energy, so I can cast more things. Sadly, I don't have enough cards, so just smash it with what I have, and that's it. And the end of turn is here. And again, the playability, you can see, okay, I'm out of cards, what should I do? So another element which is kind of like active or is inviting me to do something in this end turn, so it will take my attention to this spot eventually, so I can end it. And as the game is pretty, well, not complex, but maybe at the beginning when you start playing this, everything here is having a tooltips. There is nothing wrong with having tooltips because in the end, if player is lost, it may resort to reading the text in the end. And if it explains what will happen, it will give you a connection to the system. So I can end the turn. Now the enemy turn, I have all the animations kind of like faster than usual because I have like more than 100, maybe 200 hours on this game. So it's happening fast, but you have seen that. So now let's just let me play it and try to see what all effects are actually being done. I'm getting smashed, but I have Chrysalis now, so I will have 0 cards, more strike, more attack, and I can get another card back to my hand. Perfect, another rainbow and multiple effects, and wow, it's gone. And you see, I can play the game very fast once I get known to all the cards and the strategies. I can just storm through the game quickly, deck building, perform the deck building, trying to hit some kind of strategy during the deck building, which really contributes to the replayability of the game. And the interface and the design of interaction is done in such a pleasurable way that it really is replayable. Not much is like constraining me from storming through the game. But if I want to take my time, sometimes, like for instance checking what is ahead, that's completely possible. So there is nothing which would prevent, like for instance, some strategic decisions. So let's do some stuff now. And as you can see, I've done a lot of things. A lot of statuses has been changed. I got some extra orbs in here, but I've done it like, I don't know, maybe under a second. That's what actually Gameplay Programmer is entangled with, to ensure that the experience is as pleasurable as possible. So I think you get it by now. So I can just probably end the game, though I would really like to continue playing it. That's it. Here is a list of stuff I hope we will have time to go through or touch at least. More importantly, I've chosen Phaser and WebGL for you to work with. Yes, it's going to be tough, but at this point, that is what I believe you need. Get intimate with the code, not clicking tools. These are for designers the most. Gameplay Programmer, in the end, needs to code game mechanics. Designers cannot click. And here is your first homework. Play a game you like and report on the gameplay. Find interesting section of the game, shoot a video, and then describe how much code was probably required to make that happen. It's okay to report things. I love this interaction, but I do not have an idea how they made it. Finally, share your report with the group on Discord. Thanks for watching, and have fun thinking about your favorite game from a fresh perspective. I'm looking forward to your reports and tips what to play next, and the most importantly, why should someone play it?